The following program is brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg and the Catholic Communication Campaign. Visit us on the web at hbgdiocese.org.
Franciscan Media and this local station present American Catholic Radio, Disciples Called to Witness. Production of American Catholic Radio is made possible by
Friarworks, Franciscan Ministry and Mission at franciscan.org. Partner with the Franciscans. You really can make a difference. Friarworks at franciscan.org.
And now, here's our host.
This is Judy Zarek, here to welcome you to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness, a program designed to help you know your faith so you can grow in your faith and share it. When we talk about the Christian family and evangelization, we often think about parents being an example and witnessing the faith to their children. But I learned the other day that it's just as possible for our children to witness that faith to us as parents. The other day I drove to pick up my teenage son from baseball practice. He'd been up since 7 a.m. to get to school, went directly to practice after school, and was tired and sweaty when I picked him up. As we were sitting in traffic trying to get home so I could make dinner and he could get started on his homework, I mentioned that my husband was going to the abortion clinic near our church to say the rosary since a 40 Days for Life campaign was going on. My son casually asked if I thought we'd be home in time for him to go with my husband. It was the last thing I thought he'd be interested in doing. I know I was tired after a full day of working and knew he had to be tired too. No one expected him or asked him to go along, least of all me or his father. But as soon as we got home, he ran upstairs, changed his clothes, grabbed a rosary, and left with my husband. My younger son was on the computer and I started dinner. I realized what a great witness my 15-year-old had just been to me and his younger brother. I totally agreed again at that moment with the bishops when they said in their document on evangelization that family members learn more of the Christian life by observing each other than by formal instruction. So on today's show, we'll talk with some people who'll give us some great advice on how to bring our faith to life within our own families. We'll start our show off today by speaking with Bishop Paul Bradley from the Diocese of Kalamazoo, Michigan. Then, in my Sharing Faith interview, we'll hear from Dr. Meg Meeker, a popular speaker on pediatric health issues and child-parent relationships. And in our Discovering Faith interview, producer John Feaster will talk with Colleen Gerke, the director of the Family and Respect Life Office of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, Ohio. We have a terrific show lined up for you today, so let's get started and listen to this week's Saint of the Week. Or should I say, Saints of the Week.
Who am I? Well, actually, today the question should be, who are we? My wife and I were a team during our 5 decades of marriage, so basically we'll tell our story together. I was born in Sicily in 1880 and became a lawyer. I went on to spend most of my years working for the Italian government. I got as far as Assistant Attorney General.
I was born in Florence in 1884 and grew to have many interests. I especially loved music and eventually became a professor of education and wrote about the critical role that mothers play in the education of our children.
We met as teenagers in Rome. That's where we were married in 1905 in the Basilica of St. Mary Major. And that's where we vowed to keep God central to our married life and the lives of any children we might bring into the world. From the start, we made daily Mass and Communion a priority, along with the Rosary.
God gave us 3 beautiful children, 2 boys and a girl, in a short span of time. Then, in 1913, I was pregnant again, but this pregnancy proved to be a difficult one. Doctors advised me that my life was at risk and suggested I abort my child in order to save my own life. We didn't even need to think about it.
We refused the doctor's counsel.
As we had so often before, we turned to God in prayer and placed our trust in His providence. After a challenging pregnancy, I gave birth to a healthy daughter. We named her Enrichetta.
Any household with 4 children is a busy and noisy one. Ours was certainly no exception. The door was always opening or closing, someone coming in, someone going out. During and after World War II, we opened our home to many refugees. During World War I, my wife worked with the sick and accompanied invalids who were pilgrims to Lourdes.
But however busy we were, we never forgot our most important task as parents, to raise our children in the faith.
Apparently we did all right. Our 2 boys were ordained priests, and one of our daughters became a cloistered Benedictine. And Richetta, our 4th child, became a consecrated laywoman. As parents, we always tried to say yes to Christ.
And that's just what our children said with their lives.
I died after suffering a heart attack in 1951.
And I went home to God and my husband in 1965.
In 2001, Pope John Paul II beatified us,
making us the first jointly beatified married couple in the Catholic Church. In fact, 3 of our 4 children were present for the ceremony. The Holy Father said that as parents, as spouses, we had lived an ordinary life in an extraordinary way. Who are we?
And allow me to introduce my wife, Blessed Maria Quattroocchi.
And allow me to introduce my husband, Blessed Luigi Quattroocchi.
You're listening to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness. Our Catholic faith must be reflected in our everyday lives if we hope to evangelize others. In our Sharing Faith segment up next, I'll introduce you to someone who is willing to communicate and witness that faith. Dr. Meg Meeker works at the pediatric practice she began with her husband in Traverse City, Michigan. Her practice accepts children from infants all the way up to kids in their first year of college. Taking care of older kids is what spurred Meg into thinking about writing books on pediatric health issues and child-parent relationships.
I wrote a book called Your Kids at Risk because I was seeing a lot of problems in teenagers, infections, depression, so forth, associated with sexual activity. And I was very upset our culture sexualizes kids so much that I spoke out against that and said, you know, advertising sex to our kids is leading to terrible, terrible trouble. I took care of a lot of teenagers, and when you take care of teenagers, you take care of difficulties such as eating disorders, depression, anxiety, friendship problems. And I began to see a lot of issues arise in my patients, difficulties relating to their parents. And in particular, I wrote about the father-daughter relationship because I found that a lot of the girls who had dads who were involved in their lives did much better than girls who didn't.
Dr. Meeker has written 6 books, all of them dealing with family relationships, and all of them coming from a Catholic Christian perspective of families. Her latest book is Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters.
I found that when you really line up handling of family relationships with biblical value, it works. And what I do is I cite medical studies that show, quote, how good God is for children, and that kids need Him, and that kids with a faith have stronger moral values, they do better in school, they have less depression, they're less likely to be sexually active, and so forth. And I sort of start from there because I understand a lot of my readers may not have a faith, and so I'm trying to argue for faith first from a medical standpoint, and then I go on after that.
Being out there on the front lines, treating and talking with our young people, allows Dr. Meeker to have a good handle on what seems to be threatening our families today.
I think that the greatest threat to our families is the loss, if you will, of fathers in the home. There are so many good fathers out there who don't understand their significance and their, for lack of a better word, power in their kids' lives.
Setting a strong foundation at home is one of the ways Dr. Meeker suggests we can combat society's pull on our families.
In all of my books, I do write about the importance of faith in action in families. We let the kids know that attending church every week, a prayer every day was very important, and making Christ the center of our home was important. We would pray for one another. We would ask each other frequently, what do you need prayer for? So prayer was very much a part of our family life. We also do regular service. Once a month, our whole family runs the soup kitchen in town. I think that the current parenting paradigm, the popular one, unfortunately, even for many Christian families, is that we put kids at the center of our lives and we want their success, their happiness, providing opportunities for them. We make that the family goal. And I think that we're going down the wrong path.
Dr. Meeker again comes back to God's Word to help us understand the best way to live out our Christian calling within our families.
From a biblical perspective, Proverbs says, if you want wisdom, fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is the beginning of understanding. And that when we shift that paradigm and we put God at the center of our families, and then mom and dad and the kids more on the periphery, life is so much more joyful, it's so much calmer, it's so much more fun, it's so much richer. So that's my main message that I like to get across to Christian families is we don't have to live like all of our friends are living, and it just doesn't work when kids are at the center of our home, but putting God at the center of our home, it makes it work, and it's healthier for everybody, not only everybody's relationships in the family, but our relationship with God comes back to life, and that's very important to me.
Dr. Meg Meeker is doing her best to help families become more God-centered.
This is my commission. It's so important. I mean, it's so, and it's so close to God's heart. It's the family is so, we were created for family. We're made for Him and for one another. If you don't have those relationships intact, what do you have?
If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Meeker's books, video teaching series, and speaking engagements, go to her website, megmeekermd.com. For Sharing Faith, I'm Judy Zarek.
Studies show that people who pray regularly and practice their faith are healthier and happier. I'm Bishop Ronald Gaynor. I want to invite you to experience a positive difference in your life by visiting your Catholic parish and encountering Jesus through the sacraments. Do it for your family, do it for yourself, and come home. Remember that God's mercy is and always will be there for you, no matter what your situation. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org to find a parish near you.
Everyone said it was okay.
I had a life.
They said it was a choice.
I was looking outside for answers.
I didn't want to mess it all up.
It wasn't the real me that went that day.
The life I had, it's gone.
Something inside dies after an abortion. If you're suffering because of an abortion, you may feel alone, but you're not. There are people who understand and can help. Call 888-456-HOPE. 888-456-HOPE. A message from Project Rachel.
Our United States Conference of Catholic Bishops is helping to guide us in the call to the new evangelization. They invite us all into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ and His Church. This week, producer Matt Wilgoss talks with Bishop Paul Bradley from the Diocese of Kalamazoo, Michigan, about evangelization and the Christian family.
Joining us today on our Call to Discipleship segment is Bishop Paul J. Bradley, focusing in this segment on the Christian family. Families today are being challenged like never before. In many respects, our society and our culture are contributing to the breakdown of the family, and in more recent times, even the redefinition of marriage and perhaps even the redefinition of family itself. In your estimation, Bishop, in your diocese around the country, how are Catholic families holding up under this pressure?
Well, it is a phenomenon, and it's a concern. It's a great concern to me, of course, to I'm sure everybody, as we watch these things taking place around us. I firmly believe that this movement to try to redefine marriage or family or any of the traditional values is one that I don't think is held by most people. And I think most families are trying to do everything that they can to continue to live their lives as Catholic, Christian families to the very best of their ability.
Can you flesh out for us, what do the bishops mean when they say creating a culture of witness in the family?
I think it's a beautiful way to try to sum it up, because when we witness anything, we're giving expression to what it is that we believe. So whether a particular family actually would see themselves as church when they're living their faith, they're really being church. When they're living their faith, they're really giving witness to the world around them, to whether that world is just simply the rest of their extended family, the neighborhood in which they live, the community that they're a part of. And so it's that beautiful call to witness, and that's who we all are, isn't it? Isn't that the case? When through baptism, we're called to give witness to our faith, to, in the words of a beautiful reading that we hear a lot through this season of Lent, to be holy. That's the witness that families are called to give as well.
If there is anything else, Bishop, that you would want to share with our listening audience, I want to give you that opportunity to share from your perspective how the call to discipleship and the new evangelization can be put into practice in an individual's life today. Well,
I think the terms that we sometimes use, as church, evangelization, the domestic church, all sometimes might sound foreign, but as we discussed earlier, it's the simplicity of families that can come together in their mutual love for one another. As long as there's that sense that it's rooted in their faith and their belief in God, that is guiding them and helping them to live their lives in this world with the ultimate goal, of course, of eternal salvation. And so it's a wonderful, important, significant effort that the new evangelization is calling us all to.
You're listening to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness.
Here is today's Catholic Treasure. What is the name of the encyclical letter of Pope John Paul II setting forth the definitive pro-life teachings of the Church? The answer is the Gospel of Life, issued on March 25, 1995. This was the late Holy Father's 11th encyclical, and in it he outlined the steps toward what he called a new culture of life. He wrote that such a teaching was needed because of the grave threats to life in our world today. In the encyclical, the Pope reiterated the Church's condemnation of directly willed abortion, euthanasia, and assisted suicide, as well as any medical procedure, however well-intentioned, which directly results in the death of human embryos or fetuses. The Pope also called for a careful examination of the use of the death penalty, limiting it to cases of absolute necessity. In other words, when it would not be possible otherwise to defend society, something he called very rare, if not practically non-existent. The new culture of human life, which the Pope called for, includes a variety of ways to preach and teach about life and efforts to assist parents and families, especially in circumstances where, in the Pope's words, life is challenged by conditions of hardship, maladjustment, sickness, or rejection. In the letter, he supports programs to extend Christian charity to suffering people everywhere, particularly those suffering from addictions, AIDS, mental illness, disabilities, and for the elderly and the terminally ill. Near the end of the encyclical, the Pope tells us that this Catholic treasure, the Gospel of Life, is not for believers alone. It is for everyone.
This week on Discovering Faith, producer John Feaster speaks with Colleen Gerke, director of the Family and Respect Life Office of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, Ohio. Colleen and John will talk about the importance of evangelizing in the Christian family.
Colleen, thanks for being with us today. When we talk about the new evangelization, how do families plug into that? Why are they important?
Families are very important to the new evangelization because the home is the domestic church. The home is where we live out the gospel teachings of Jesus Christ. The home is where we mirror what happens at the Eucharistic table by sitting down at our own tables and telling our own stories about our own days of our own struggles and healing of hurts and joys and sorrows and feast together just like we do at a Sunday celebration.
You mentioned the domestic church. I know a lot of us know that, but there could be some who don't. Tell me, what is the domestic church?
Domestic church is the Christian community in the home. It's the disciples of Jesus Christ who want to live gospel values in their everyday life and to serve God's people with love and compassion.
So how do we evangelize our families?
We evangelize our own family by the actions that we take, by the choices that we make, by the things that we choose to be involved in. I remember our family was always open to new and other people. At one point, we even housed unwed mothers. And one Sunday, we were at church, and the boys were very distracted by the bulletin. And after church, I said, okay, now you can tell me what was in the bulletin. Well, Mom, there's this family, and they need a place to live. And they're from Poland. We can do that, can't we, Mom? And I was like, wow. That's when some decisions we made became apparent that was instilled in our children, when they, in fact, saw the opportunity for us to do something for one of God's loved ones. New evangelization is about witnessing the life of Jesus Christ in the home, to love and care for your neighbor and your friends and those in trouble.
Studies show that people who pray regularly and practice their faith are healthier and happier. I'm Bishop Ronald Gaynor. I want to invite you to experience a positive difference in your life by visiting your Catholic parish and encountering Jesus through the sacraments. Do it for your family, do it for yourself, and come home. Remember that God's mercy is and always will be there for you, no matter what your situation. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org to find a parish near you.
Everyone said it was okay.
I had a life.
They said it was a choice.
I was looking outside for answers.
I didn't want to mess it all up.
It wasn't the real me that went that day.
The life I had, it's gone.
Something inside dies after an abortion. If you're suffering because of an abortion, you may feel alone, but you're not. There are people who understand and can help. Call 888-456-HOPE. 888-456-HOPE. A message from Project Rachel.
You know, a lot of Catholics feel like they don't know enough about their own faith. I know we share things with our children, but they think, like, when it comes to official Catholic stuff, I don't even know how to share that with my children. What do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
I hear that a lot. Being an educator myself, I don't know that I ever fell into that myself, but I hear it a lot, and I'm always surprised. I remember one time a neighbor said, we're not that good at living our faith. And I remember telling her, I said, Barb, you're one of the best families I know about teaching how to live simply. You guys live on the values of simplicity. You don't have a TV in every room. You don't have multiple cars. And you're very generous with your time and your money, and you are catechizing your children about a value, a Christian value, just by the way that you live. I think a lot of times people don't realize they really are living Christian values. They just need someone to help them name the values that they're living and identify them with the values of Jesus Christ.
One final question. I know we talk about evangelization. I know we talk about families, but somewhere the Holy Spirit is in this. Can you talk about that?
The Holy Spirit is alive in catechesis, in the animation of the story of Jesus Christ, in the lived experience. It's the Holy Spirit who is active in our lives that enables us to reach out and be courageous and to be compassionate and to do what we know that Jesus would want us to do.
For Discovering Faith, I'm John Feaster.
This is Judy Zarek here to wrap up this edition of ACR Presents Disciples Called to Witness. If you're a parent like I am, I'm guessing that you've read at least one book on parenting since you first found out you were going to have a baby. I know I have, beginning with the ever-popular What to Expect When You're Expecting. Books like that and others that try to tell me how to discipline my children or set up chore charts to get them to do work around the house never prepared me for what was really the most important thing, how to bring my children up in the faith. The family is often referred to as the domestic church, the first place where one experiences and is formed in the faith. Well, when I hear that, I feel a lot of responsibility as a mother. Fortunately for me, my husband and I were in this thing together, and we both had a strong conviction of faith in our own lives, so we purposefully looked to others to help us along that path. We invited our parents, grandparents, and siblings to celebrate the special sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and Holy Communion with our children as they each came along. They helped to reinforce the faith simply by being present or by sending a card or gift. I never realized how much of an impact that can make until I began to think about those milestones in my own life. I do remember my godparents, who lived in another city, sending me a card on my birthday each year, even as I got older and was a teenager. I remember extended family and friends coming to my house and celebrating with me when I made my first Holy Communion. And then I began to think that maybe what my husband and I have been doing by continuing to celebrate those milestones with our own kids has been having an effect on their faith journey as well. They're all still too young to tell, but at least I know I'm doing something to strengthen the ties that bind my Christian family together. And if I do that, and you do that in your family, I believe our Catholic, our universal family can only grow stronger. You can find ACR archive programs and more on the web at productions.franciscanmedia.org, where you can contact us and also meet our production team: Sharon Cross, John Feaster, Ron Riegler, Chris Holmes, Kim Wessendarp, Dan Anderson, and our executive producer, Matt Wilgas. Music for our program was composed and arranged by Bobby Fisher. I'm Judy Zarek. Join me next time for another edition of American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness.
American Catholic Radio, Disciples Called to Witness, is produced by Franciscan Media, a ministry of the Franciscan Friars of Cincinnati, Ohio. Production is made possible by Friarworks, Franciscan Ministry and Mission at franciscan.org. Partner with the Franciscans. You really can make a difference. Friarworks at franciscan.org. This program has also been sponsored in part by
the University of Dayton's virtual learning community for faith formation, bringing quality and trusted online learning to your fingertips. Get started today. Go to vlc.udayton.edu or call 1-888-300-8436.
American Catholic Radio, Disciples Called to Witness, is also sponsored by listeners like you. Please visit our website where you can donate and find American Catholic Radio archive programs as well as other resources. franciscanmedia.org.
This program was brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg and the Catholic Communication Campaign. Visit us on the web at hbgdiocese.org.